Oh, morning. And find myself in the corn patch. Yeah, well, house is cleaned. I'm here looking for cucumbers, not directly here, I got sidetracked. But came home yesterday and the chickens were out and about, I guess 2 of them. And the rooster, they flew the coop. I really should just cut their wings, or clip them, so that they can't actually fly out. I didn't originally do that just because I had them free ranging, and if you're free ranging them, then you shouldn't clip their wings. You know, they can at least get out a dangerous way. But the problem is, then, you know, the reason I lock them up is that they destroy my squash when they're out here. So it sucks, because this is I was really looking forward to this variety, and they've been picking at them, and they're dwindling. But corn is making something. Look at that. There's smaller kernels here and there, but I mean, I am seeing heads on them, and they're all, you know, it's getting there. So I'm hopeful to actually receive a crop this year. You know, it looked a little, you know, it looks very stunted, but who knows? Maybe it's just a smaller stalk, but they're still producing pretty decent ears, surprisingly. So I'm curious to see how that all goes. It's the complete opposite of what I had last year. I had tall corn last year, over 11 foot, with no ears. So at least this year I get really small corn, but there seems to be decent ears on there. Either way, I'm going to toss this to the chickens. I'm going to go and see what there is for cucumbers. And then, yeah, it's just a shame. Because I got all this nice squash out here, and, you know, then they do this. And some of it I don't know if I bring in. Yeah, here's another one. They pecked at, and what I might leave these over. Hopefully they scab over, and while I can't store them for winter, I might be able to still use them in the fall, and then maybe get seed out of it. That's the most important thing. I know I got some in the back there. Actually, each of the stragglers, because I originally planted 6 plants here, I only left the 1. I was hedging my bets, but I took the other 5 and I put them out there. So I think there's 3 there and 3 there. And last I saw, they all had fruit on them. So that's exciting. But there's 2 more in here, I know that. You can see that there. They're nestled away from the chickens. And there's still 1 there that's still good. But it's a shame because this thing was big. So I had this nice one, there was another one there. There might still be more, but you know, I can see that one over there. There's this spaghetti squash over there. I don't see it on the camera, but I see it out here. It makes no sense. It's like right there. Oh yeah, you can just see the outline there. I can see there's a lot of chicken damage. So, but lesson learned. Oh, this cat's spooky. What are you doing here, bud? But yeah, that's how it goes. You learn. So I'll give that to the chickens, and then let's see where the day goes from there. She got some good balance. A little update on the tomatoes here. I'm just bound some up a little more, and you know, they're all different varieties, and you know, I'm quite liking this string method. So see, some of these are yellowing up. I got myself some pickles, cucumbers. The yellow ones for seed. I was just gonna put that inside. Pick some of the ground cherries again, and yeah, it's coming along. So it's nice to see. We've got a lot of green tomatoes, and I think this is yeah, it's funny. When you start collecting seed, everything has a story. I got these from a friend 2 years ago. I got that one from a co-worker. He was giving away tomatoes, and I took the seed from one of them. I didn't have beefsteak seed, and I got, you know, some of these are from a lady at church, the Russian ones. Some of these, you know, I've been growing for near 4 years already. This one, I think, is one of the first tomatoes. I picked them up in the thrift store. They were late. I remember the lady there, she told me a trick to planting tomatoes, and I think they were all Juliets, and this where the line comes from. I think those Romas were from last year, but it's kind of neat. Everything has when you start collecting your own seed, everything kind of has a story, an origin point. So I think these are also, I have a little list that I wrote, so I do know which variety is each. I do like keeping some sort of track of that, and then the beans are actually, they're getting big. I got this one is running out of room. So I will be doing this different next year. I saw how I saw a method, kind of an old time method of stringing these up, but I see there's a good number of beans there. These are, again, Scarlet Runners and Kentucky pole beans, and on this side we have I think it's the Houdense skunk, and I think it was a Mohawk bean. So I like the pole beans. I like how, I don't know, I like the structure of them better than the bush beans. And those potatoes, they can be dug out. So at least a good number of them. We'll see how that goes. Okay, just a quick update. I did pick those cucumbers eventually, and then I got some of the ground cherries out there too, and so I decided I should put a label on there. I really got to get in the habit of doing that when these start. But these are ferments. So I got two older ones back here, this one and this one. And this one's looking quite nice actually. I bet you that's pretty much done. You can see it stopped. It stopped really. Well, it's still active, so it's still bubbling. And it was kind of, I have one here that's this one. I don't think it ever kicked off. It never started. So I got two of the big ones. I actually kick-started these. I just took like a tablespoon, put them of this liquid into there, so that kind of brings that culture into these two. These two, like naturally, there should be enough yeast in whatever you're putting in there to kickstart them. So these two I left because when you take the natural yeast, you can you get different flavors here and there, and you can see the pickles, cucumbers. I got tomatoes from the fellow at work. He's got lots of there. And I got the little ground cherries in there. I left them whole, so that's my little experiment. See if you can get away with that. There's also an onion in there and some garlic. I had these big cloves of garlic. One plant that I dug up, so big that when I pulled it up, the stalk snapped. So I had to go in there and dig after the bulb. But man, those were just big. And there's like 4 pieces, but I used that in there because it was separate. I was already drying on the counter, so. I'll see how those do. I like fermented foods, and I'm still wondering how viable it is. Here's another. I'm always running experiments, but this time I have this plastic around, so I'm gonna, every day I have to kind of off gas it, but because these are steel lids, and all of these are, and until I find plastic lids or something of the sort, something that's non-corrosive, because I'm putting salt in there, these things will eventually rust. So I'm thinking if I can seal it off with a plastic, and I actually did that here with my this is apple vinegar, and this one's actually still kicking off really nicely. You don't really see it there, but that's where all my plum pits and pulp went. But that's good. But yeah, then maybe it protects the lid from the elements. And I'd like to take one of these jars and use it as a long-term storage, because I'll see how it goes. But I have a pot downstairs of carrots, fermented carrots. That's good. I tried that last year, and I saved one of the jars, fermented it, and then at the very end you can see when it's kind of done. Then you just crank it closed, and then that headspace of CO2 from the off gas, that seals it in. That prevents any mold growth, so theoretically. And so I have one of those sitting downstairs. I actually have fermented jalapenos down there too, but that are from last year. And what I want to do is wait just a little bit more until I get another batch of fermented carrots started, and then I'll open that one. And if it's still good, well, that's a viable year-long solution to being able to store that kind of food. It's fermented. It's healthier than to you than if you were to can it. It's easier to make than canning it, because the only way you really can, that I know of, to can carrots is really with a pressure can at that point. And it honestly, it just tastes really good. So again, all these little food experiments going on. So I'm gonna sit down for coffee and then kind of see where the day goes. I'm thinking about cutting a bunch of plywood for the bees, or maybe running errands. I'm not sure yet, but you know, something will come up. Alright, so I'm out picking choke cherries. Figure I want to try and make a vinegar this year from choke cherries. Well, I mean, we got a few trees out here, and I don't know if you can, I've got a little basket, and I got a bigger pail over there that I dump it into. But you can see they're up there. I can, there's a little cluster, and I'm just taking the low hanging fruit here. So, you know, you got that stuff. I'm just going around, seeing if I can collect enough, and then yeah, I want to try at least a little batch, and then if it's nice, then I can do more next year. But I don't want to, you know, I don't like doing too much at once. You know, see how it turns out first, and go from there. Because choke cherries, I don't know, it's a bit of a funny fruit to utilize. They're pretty tart, and there are a lot of stones, and they got a lot of uses, but you know, you need a certain amount for them. So I'll see what they're like as a vinegar, and then kind of go from there. Alright, so I'm getting some vinegar started, and I got one squared away. I got other stuff labeled, and I figured I'd just give you a quick highlight of what I did here. So I took the choke cherries, I washed them all, and hey, that's not choke cherries, I know. I'll get to that. Here's one of them. This is when I started. So I filled 3/4 up with choke cherries, and then the rest with water. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I actually put a date on there now, and how much choke cherries to water ratio I put in there. Again, see how that turns out. But yeah, I just washed them all, and then I basically put them in this bowl, and then I just, you know, break them, kind of like treading grapes. I figured, you know, that at least that way you open it up, that way they can get in there. So this is the next batch I want to try. So I only have about a quarter. Choke cherries is what was left. I'll put 1/3 of a cup of sugar in there. I figured that could help start the fermentation too. No sugar in that one. I'll try it au naturel. And then this one, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then because I wanted a little more fruit in there, I opened the fridge or the freezer, and I found I had a bag of plums in there. So I figured, okay, it was all frozen, so I just tossed some water in there. Double boiler essentially. This hot water. This is now, I busted them all up again. I'll just be tossing them whole in there. Fill the rest with water. I'll get that labeled and scrolled away. And then I went ahead and I labeled these ferments on a date. I have the dates for those two. They're in my day planner somewhere, and then so I'm going to try that, and then yeah, you just get that scrolled away and kind of see where that goes. Again, part of the many experiments I run around here, and you know, I'm always trying to make my own things. And then now, of course, yeah, there's sugar in there. That's not for me, but you know, that's just because it's cheap and on hand. I could be putting honey in there, and I was about to. I have a little jar there I was just going to toss in there, but it's got a little bit of a wax layer on there, and I didn't want to deal with that in the glass there. So when I processed that honey, because of the condition of the frames, a lot of wax passed through it, and how I filtered it. For me, it don't matter in its own right, but you do notice it in your cups when you use it. But yeah, it's basically done. I'm just gonna, you know, put this over, and I feel like that's risky to do one hand. I'm going to use two hands, so I'll do that. So if anybody wants to know how to make vinegar, it's honestly straightforward. Apple vinegar is the easiest, I find. And all I did last year, I took my crab apples, diced them or quartered them, I think. I just diced them halves. And I just filled them up about 3/4 of the way, and I filled the rest of it with water. And then the natural yeasts that are in there, they're gonna ferment. They're gonna turn everything to alcohol. Just cover it with a screen cloth, like a t-shirt. Just if you have an old one around, cut squares of it around, and then take a rubber band, put it around, and that way no schmutz gets in it, but it can still breathe, because you need it to breathe, because it's making the alcohol, and then the bacteria, the acidic bacteria, is going to turn that alcohol into acetic acid, and that's what your vinegar is. And at the end of it, it's going to ferment greatly, but once it stops fermenting, once the alcohol, all the sugars are converted to alcohol, then you can take the solids out, and you can put you can at least strain the coarse stuff out. So in this case, will be a lot of the skins, a lot of the pulp, the seeds. They'll all come out at that point, and then you'll still have particulates in there, but that'll all settle to the bottom. And I've got a little sample of that actually here on the last batch I made, the batch of apple cider I made last year. And I just use, it's just regular, this is well water, so I'm blessed to have a well out here. I don't have to be drinking, chlorine and fluoride all day. So I don't know how people put up with that, but that's all we got. I know I would still filter it for something, but just bring it to about the neck there. Gives a little bit of breathing room. If you're fermenting stuff, you always leave a little bit of headspace. Give it room to breathe, because sometimes, and I had this before, you take something, how you say, something like this. If you don't have enough space there, that stuff can come up. It can plug the bottom of your water trap, and then all of a sudden it starts building pressure, and there's nowhere for it to go because it's plugged. And then all of a sudden you're sitting in one room and you hear a big bang in the house, and you wonder what went off, and then you go into your laundry room and there's a big mess everywhere. That's hypothetically what can happen. So yeah, learn from that. So then after this, then I have to cut a piece of square. Actually, I should just mix that in there. I can do that. But that's where I want it. And I'll take a cloth. I like to use the fabric. It's very durable. Just cut squares of it, or circles, whatever you want. Put a rubber band around it. Or you can use coffee filters. I don't like them. If they get wet, then they kind of deteriorate. So you got to keep them dry then, because inevitably sometimes it gets wet and it just, what have you. So I'll go get some of those cut. Alright, so cut myself a little piece of fabric. Look at that, just goes on top. Rubber band, and then that's all there is to it. Now stuff doesn't get in, but the gas goes out. So that's, figured what I could do. And then because you gotta, here's the thing, stuff's gonna float to the top usually. So you can either weigh it down. If you have glass weights, you could do that. I don't. I just I open it up once a day. Just take it off. You take I always use wood when I deal with this stuff. I don't know. I feel like metal is not I don't know if it's bad for it or not, but I don't know. I just use wood. And then because stuff's gonna float down there, and if you don't push it down, it's gonna mold. So you just do that once a day, and eventually it gets heavy enough that it just sinks. So there's that. I figured could mix this up a little bit. This really isn't necessary, I would think. Oh wait, I got sugar in there. Maybe it's better to get that actually throughout the mixture. Yeah, that's actually good. If it was just the fruit, it really wouldn't matter at all. The yeast will find it. But there we go. And then yeah, you can when it's going, you can mix it more, and then just go from there. So got that. Got that. So that's about a quarter choke cherry, a quarter plum. So now I'm just gonna. That's how I make labels. I just put them on there. And if you're doing canning, you need a bunch of dates. I just keep writing down the whole roll until I get to the end of the. There you go, and then you can just put it on there. Makes quick work of it. This is how I make all my labels. It's easy to get on, easy to get off. Doesn't leave residue. Look at that. That's some might almost think that's professional. Oh, it's wet. Anyway, that's how I make vinegar. Alright, sitting in how you say, the command center, and I'm working on editing some numbers, crunching numbers, like an accountant, except these are for beehives, so it's a lot more interesting. The issue I had with some of the beehives is when you start stapling all that stuff together, when you start nailing it together, sometimes the insulation is 2 inches, the spacer in which it needs to be is 2 inches, so I wanted to give it a little bit of breathing room, and I thought maybe I should bump everything up by a 16th, which being hindsight, maybe I should just do an 1/8. I'm still not sure, but I have a whole list of my dimensions there, and everything that's highlighted has been edited, and so the idea is I bump everything up by a 16th. That way when I put the insulation in, there should be, a little bit more plate. I shouldn't need much more because I got away with, with those tight tolerances now. Giving just a little extra breathing room should be good enough, but then I had to bump everything up, almost everything up by a 16th or an 1/8, depending on, if it was both sides. And now I'm kind of in the process of trying to figure out if it would be nice if I can print this, because I have a printer. It's a nice little bear. My mother knit that. It was a Gunter the bear. It's very nice. But I have a printer. It's one of them inkjet printers. It's I can't print with it because I don't have magenta in there. As the story goes. So I'm kind of looking at laser printers, and I don't want to pay for one. But at some point, it's because I so seldom use it. But if you want to print out lists and stuff like that, it's so nice if you can just have a list with you. I put this stuff on the phone, but I hate that. I don't like that at all. Always turns off, turns on. I want to have something I can thumbtack to the wall of my shed, and it's like, hey, there's my list, and I just cut from that. But I'd like to use these numbers because I'm doing this now because I want to cut lumber. I want to cut plywood for the upcoming season. Getting ready for winter here. Get that squirreled away. But I really, anytime I make changes, theoretically this should all be sound. I went through it. It looks good, but I would prefer to do like a test run, cut this out, assemble it. If it works, go from there. But that's, that prototyping is also, that's time consuming, and yeah, but it's worth it because if you mess up on one piece, then that's a headache to fix. But that's where I'm at right now, and then from this I'm also, if this works, then I can use these numbers in. I got another project slated in mind. I want to make a larger beehive, like a bee bed, and I will be using it with this design in mind. So we'll see how that turns out then. Alright, so I'm starting to cut the material for the beehives now. So I'm starting with what would be the interior bottom sheet that actually didn't. It's the same as the old measurements. It's been unaffected. So I got my first one, well, really second one cut, but I'm using this this, I don't know, this little jig I made last weekend on the 7th. You had a day off. So the way I take this straight edge, I'm going to cut them all at, in this case, 36.5, and then that will be square. I'll have one square side. I'll flip it to cut them 36 3/8 to my final measurement, and I just did that with this one. This one turned out nice. You know, it's got the right width. It's you know, square to the corners, and then I flip it because now the edges are square, and then I will run them all at the 36 or the 18 3/8. I just had to make a note to so I have measurements down there, and it works just fine. It's dusty in here. I got the back doors open. That's why I should wear a mask in here. I think I should notch like a relief in there or something, but it's just to keep the dirt from plugging up in there, because you don't, you know, it needs to be flush against there. But I'll run all my pieces through there first. It's a little more labor intensive than what it should be, but this just ensures that everything is straight. It's kind of where I want it to, and that's within my tolerances. So I'll go proceed with that. Alright, so as you saw, that's the first pieces cut. I cut 7 of those. I already had 3 in storage, so that's 10 pieces for 10 more hives, and that's the shelving space that I have in there for storage. I can store 10 at a time nicely on the shelves that I have. So that worked pretty well. I think that the tolerance is within a 1/16, which, you know, I try to shoot for that, but it's some of them they're bang on. Really, it's nice. Other ones, they're like half a 16. Some of them even where they start off good, but they seem to taper just a little bit. And it's just, you know, when you're cutting those, it's all on the lengths. The short stuff is no problem. But the moment you start getting the long length cuts in there, sometimes if that is just the tiniest bit out, you're gonna be out. So it's, you know, I measure to the 16th, I shoot for that, and it's all within it, but you know, I try to, like I said, some of it is just on the money, and others, yeah, it's kind of just luck at the draw, I guess. In the end of the day, you can only get so accurate with a setup like this. So, but for now, I think that's good, and then I really should start cleaning this up. A lot of that came from the cuts I was making before, but I'll just have to wheel it out in the wheelbarrow and then dispose of it. Alright, so I got some more cutting done, and I got the interior side walls all cut. So here is all 20 pieces. You know what, this is not it's not the fastest. I don't know, something like cutting these 20, it's still about half hour's work just to get them all there. And it's not, you know, because there's a lot of extra cutting that doesn't need to be, there's a lot of wasted time here. So for instance, I'm cutting the runs of 19 and 7/8. Yeah, sure, right here's 19 7/8, and it seems to always be tapering off at the end at you know, about 20 inches, so it's about an eighth out. So why not adjust that? Well, then it's not square, and I don't know where this square is. See, but if I flip it around and then I cut it again, and that's good, and that's square, and these pieces are all good and square. They're what they need to be, but I'm making more cuts than I really need to. There honestly should be 2 cuts, possibly 3. Really 3 cuts is you know, maximum is what there should be, but it's not. And that's just the limitations of these homemade contraptions, especially when you make it out of wood. Everything kind of works on you too, and never seems to be straight. So I have to start, this is what I cobble together in a day. If I can get my hives cut out with this thing, one, I guess I can give myself a pat on the back and at least say you cut it all in house. And 2, at least then we're set for the winter, and then we can start actually designing something that's better. Because this, honestly, I feel like I should just cut out what I need and then dismantle it, because it's a big thing. It's just not worth it to keep around, in my opinion. I'd like to make something that's actually more like a panel saw that can go onto the wall. But again, it's all these little things, and some I need to make something ideally with rails. Like this sits on a sled that's guided by rods. Just push, like that's straight, and that's good. This works. It works. But if you push it on rails too, then you can have your dust is not gonna be like the dust is always sitting on the track there, and especially I cut these 2 at a time towards the end. And when you start cutting 3/4, there you get a lot of sawdust on there, and every time you go back, then it just, you know, I think I just have to get rid of this stop, because it doesn't make, like, it just built up too much. I just have to be careful that I don't go all the way to the back. That's really it. Just watch it. The only reason I have that here is so I can't go off and then accidentally actually cut this all the way through, which would, you know, be no bueno. Or I could just make this a lot smaller, maybe just ride the edge there, something like that, because it builds up too much dust. And if that is there, then if that's a little bit too far forward, then you're starting onto the wood, and then yeah, things go wrong too. These are just the small pieces, so we'll see how that goes. But hey, that's another one knocked down. I got 2 components knocked down, and I guess, you know, I just keep cleaning up, seeing where that goes, and then I should actually get a Sharpie with me when I go to the container, and I'll start labeling my shelves so I know what's actually in the shelves. But it works. Could be better. I'll have to design something different, and it's one of the many things I actually have to start designing for this little bee operation. But either way, let's see where the day goes from here. Well, this is the start, I guess I can do that, start of the shelving. So like I said, these are all spaced for 10 hives. There are the 20 side pieces, and there's the 10 bottoms. So I have to rearrange it now that I figure out, but I labeled the sides, so I have different components and I label them all. So then when I come here, I just, I need 2 of the 2 B's, and I need 1 A, and then I just make a little list, and I get all of these together, and then I bring it to the workshop. But I do know that this shelf, this one needs to go lower, because while this is, it just needs to be lowered. So yeah, there's the start of it, and we got 2 pieces ready for winter.